What's right about America? Easy to deliver a 30-minute tirade of what's wrong with it. What's right about it? Well, what is America? You know, answering that question alone is a toughie, because America is different things to different people. It reminds me of the old story of blind persons who were sent out to describe what an elephant was, and one came back and said, an elephant is tall and thin, it's about that long. All he did was feel the tail. Another blind man came back and said, it's round and it's like a log. He felt the trunk. Another one said, it is round and stubby and hard. All he felt was a leg. Not a single blind person knew what the elephant was. And I suppose if I went around and asked you, what is America, we might come up with a lot of different answers, because it depends where you're coming from. What is America? America is a lot. I suppose maybe we could get an answer to the question if we simply ask what's right about it. And I'm hoping that as I answer that question, we'll probably have a new consciousness of what the country really is. What's right about America? First, America has great men and women. You bet. This past week I was out on business, I have to say, in Hawaii. And I was back at Hana, where Lindbergh is buried. And I thought about what a brave man he was to fly across the ocean from America to Europe when he did, solo. I mean, when he went across the Atlantic, he didn't have 100 television sets in Houston, Texas, monitoring his trip. It was really something. I think of Lindbergh. I look at the history. I'm a history and a major, and I think of the great men and women. Wow, we've still got them. It may not be a Lindbergh, but you know, I read the other day that American Telephone and Telegraph, I think, is coming out with a new super chip. Not quite a quarter of an inch wide, not quite a half inch long, and it'll be equivalent to 269,000 transistors, and it's going to be the super chip of all super chips, ahead of anything that's being planned in Japan today. Oh, we've got a lot of great men. They're scientists, they're engineers, they're educators, they wear the uniform in the military, and they're in religion too. The name Billy Graham is known worldwide. America's a great country. We've got great men. You know, I don't have any ghostwriters, but I do have a very dear friend, Rabbi Herschel Brooks. And we've been friends for many years, and he feeds me little material once in a while. And he sent me this joke a while back and said, here's a good story, you can tell it, Schuller, so I'll tell it. Now, it was a Catholic, an Irish Catholic, came from Ireland to teach in one of the Catholic schools in America that has a shortage of priests. And he thought he'd make a hit with his class on the opening day, so he held a $10 bill, and he said, I'll give $10, maybe I can have the accent, I'll give $10 to the lad who can tell me who is the greatest man who ever lived. One kid said, Abraham Lincoln. He said, no, my lad. The kid said, George Washington. No, my lad. Thomas Jefferson. No, my lad. Franklin Roosevelt. No, my lad. One kid popped up and said, St. Patrick. And the teacher, fresh from Ireland, said, you win, my lad, come up here and take your $10. The kid came up and the teacher said, what's your name and how did you know that St. Patrick was the greatest man who ever lived? The kid said, my name, it's Isaac Finkelstein. And sir, both you and I know St. Patrick wasn't the greatest man who ever lived. You and I both know in our hearts that the greatest man who ever lived was not Lincoln or Washington or Jefferson or Franklin or Roosevelt, nor St. Patrick. It was Moses. But business is business. And he took his $10 and left. We have great men in this country, great women in this country. Stay with the M's. We have great men and women. We have a great motive. The motive of America is to develop the potential so that every human being ought to experience the maximum happiness possible in life. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's even good theology, because good theology says our purpose on planet Earth is to glorify God and enjoy, that's the word, enjoy Him forever. Happiness. It's an amazing thing, you know. America's never had a motive of creating an international empire so that we can sell more products. Of course we expand markets, but that's never been our motive. Canada and Mexico have never had to fear America invading them. And there aren't many countries in the world that have been able to say we never needed to fear those who were next door to us. Why? When we sent our soldiers around the world, it wasn't to wage war, it was to stop it. It wasn't to kill, it was to end the killing. It wasn't to conquer, it was always to liberate. And we left our best men buried in foreign soil and under the seas. And we left everything behind and never took any credit or bonus. Our motive has been as good as you'll find in the history of any country, I submit, in the history of the human race. Great men, we have a great motive, and we have a great method. Our method is called freedom. We believe that ultimately everything is, the best will rise to the top if there's freedom. It's called the judgment of the marketplace, you know. That if you've got the best product with the best service and the best guarantee, it will. If you've got the best marketing plan, it will succeed. And the mediocre will fail. Why? There's the freedom, the judgment of the marketplace. And so this produces what's called the free enterprise system. We believe that everybody ought to have a chance to take a whack at it. And if you want to make $1 million, make $1 million. And don't feel guilty about it. Make all you can, save all you can, give all you can, generate wealth. And if you generate, there will be no way you can generate wealth without investing it. And in the investment procedure, you'll create job opportunities. Or you'll spend it in the marketplace or at the gas station. And it's going to sift around until everybody gets a chunk of it. So anytime you see somebody becoming wealthy, realize that they're going to lose their wealth unless they invest it. And if they invest it, they're going to lose control of it to some degree. It's an incredible method. Great men with a great motive and a great method and with a great master. Yes, America's master has always been law. That's L-A-W. Not Jesus Christ. Not Jesus Christ. It's the freedom of religion in this country. You can be a Christian, you can belong to a non-Christian faith, you can be an atheist. You have that freedom in this land. The master in our whole system is law. And so freedom is restrained by law. You know, this was the crucial question that Cicero faced in Rome. That's why we call it Roman law. It was in the Roman Forum that Cicero, in his classic debate, said, you want total freedom and you don't want law because law restricts freedom. But if you have total liberty without law, the liberty will become licensed, there will be anarchy, and in anarchy a dictator will take over and nobody will have any freedom. Freedom, Cicero argued, must be limited, but not by a gun, not by a dictator, by law. And the human beings and every citizen must have the right to write that law and amend that law and appeal that law. And that's where freedom ultimately wins, because we have the freedom to shape the law. It is an incredible system. What's right with America? Great men and women, a great motive, a great method, freedom, a great master, of law. And we have a great message. What is our message? Our message is our history. Really it is. What is our history? You know, I think of Churchill, who said, he coined the phrase, her finest hour. Remember that? Churchill said, England, during World War II, it was England's finest hour. I agree with that. And I submit that at this point in our history, at least, our finest hour in America was World War II. Here is my brief. We sent our best and our bravest, and they went to islands in the Pacific, and they went to Europe. They literally went around the world. And they went without any hope or assurance that they would for sure come back alive. Think of it. Our finest young men and our finest young women. And when we sent them off, it was with pride in our hearts, not shame. And they went to die for people with a different colored skin, different shaped eyes, with different religions and different cultures. They died for different people, not for our own kind. Incredible, isn't it? And they plowed through mud with pluck in their hearts and found time to deliver a native woman of a child and played the role of a doctor and a midwife. The Yanks, the Americans, great. That was World War II. And you know, I stopped and thought about it this week because since I was in the islands, I stopped at Punch Bowl and I looked at those acres and acres of little white crosses where the best and the bravest buried and they never came home. It's rather touching. And I thought of this. Why did they step forward? Why did they say yes? Why did they volunteer? Many of them did, you know. Why did they not resist the draft? Why did they put the uniform on and wear it proudly? Why wasn't there a mass protest to say no against the war? Why didn't we just say, we're our own little country here. Nobody's burning people in ovens in America. And yeah, they dropped a bomb in Pearl Harbor, but that's 3,000 miles away. Let them have the island. Why didn't they? Answer the question. It's a question. Why did the Americans respond and rise up? What motivated them? What spark was ignited within them, and why? I think I know the answer. Because I was in my early 20s at that time. And let me tell you, all across America, every young man and every young woman, with rare exception, had a hero when he was 20 years old. You know who that hero was? I'm going to drop a word that you probably have never heard of, some of you. Let me tell you. The word is missionary. Listen. All across America, in churches and chapels. I was growing up. I grew up in Iowa. The corn would wave in the field, and we would work in the field. On Sundays, the church bells would ring. People would go to church. The organ would play. And parents would come and they would carry little babies and dedicate them to God with a prayer that God would take this little life and call this little child to something that would be great in the service of God and in the service of our fellow human beings. And with the cross there, that meant we would be honored if our child would be called to something that was so great they would gladly and joyfully die for it. And so all through the Americas, I was growing up with they committed children. and prayed that there would be a call to greatness. And the greatest honor that could come to a father and mother would be if their child grew up and said, "Dad, I want to be a missionary." "Really?" "Yeah. I want to become a doctor and go to Japan or Arabia or India. And I want to build a hospital." And so that's what happened. And so they went to college and they went to medical school. And then, forsaking the pleasures and probably the comforts of this country, they came forward. I remember the Sunday mornings when these young men and their wives, they looked old to me then. When I was 12, they looked in their 20s like old people. And they came forward and they went off around the world. The international jet set prior to 1950 were missionaries. They didn't go in jets. And they didn't pack suitcases that would fit neatly in the overhead rack above you or under the seat in front of you. They carried trunks. The trunks were big because they had to take enough for 6 years. And they packed them with clothes, and then they packed them with their library. And then let me tell you what they did. The last thing they put on top was the American flag. And they knew they couldn't fly it where they were going. They couldn't fly it in China. And they couldn't fly it in Arabia, and they couldn't fly it in India. Why did they take it? Because it said so much to them. They took that flag, and on holidays they would stroke it. And many of them died there and never came back. And they were honored. They were our heroes. It was from that psychological, anthropological, sociological seedbed when suddenly the call came to save the lives in Europe and in Asia. And every young man that heard the call to the uniform saw it as a chance to be a missionary for freedom and peace. I came back this week from the Punch Bowl, and I have a message for you, Americans. Have no pity at all for those who died in the Second World War or the Vietnam conflict or any of these wars. Really, do not pity the person who died in war, but rather pity the person who's alive but doesn't have anything he'd die for. When does greatness start? I'll tell you when it starts. Greatness starts in a human life when you become aware of your mortality. When suddenly it dawns on you that you're not going to live forever on this earth, and you're going to die. You don't know when, you don't know how, but you're mortal. That's when greatness starts, with that consciousness, and with it, the hope. Oh God, I don't want to blow it. I want to make a mark somehow, some way, somewhere. And then greatness comes when in that prayer you are consumed by a call to make a commitment that may call for your very life. No person is truly alive or totally human until he makes a commitment to something that he would gladly die for. That is a chariot of fire. That's what it is. It lifts you above the earth, transcends the flesh, and brings you into the realm of the spirit. Don't feel sorry for those who died under a white cross. Feel sorry for those who are alive and have nothing today they would gladly die for. I have something like that I would die for. Now, if you don't have it, I would love to give it to you. Many of you have it. You are a mother. You would die for your child. You are a father. Many of you have no children, but you give yourselves for others. I was in Guatemala 2 weeks ago. The Organization of American States had a big thing going, and I was invited. I was there. And I boarded the plane coming home, and seated across from me was a lovely young lady, 30 years old, I would gather. She looked for all the world like she might have been Miss America 9 years before. Beautiful. Very elegantly, but not over tastefully dressed. And she had on her lovely white skirt one little Guatemala boy about 2 years of age, and he was crying and crying and crying. And at the other empty seat, she had another little Guatemala boy about 3 years of age. And it looked so incongruous. I said, "Excuse me, what are you doing with these children?" "Oh," she said, "I belong to the Presbyterian Church in Washington, and a couple of years ago there was a lady there, and she was going to adopt a child from abroad, and just before she got the child home, the child died. And she found out it was sad because it was a disease that could have been cured in America, but not in that third world country. So she started a thing called Healing the Children. And she went over there, and she's trying to find foster parents, and she asked me if I'd be a foster parent and take one of these children in our home for 6 months. And my husband and I said yes. She said that was the start of it. And now she said, we go around the world, and we find little children that would die without the kind of medical help that they can only get in America. And she said, that's what I do. I'm happily married, but I donate my time. So she said, I'm taking these 2 little children. One is going to a hospital in Minnesota, and another is going to a hospital up in the Northwest. I said, wow. She said, we're going to save their lives, I think. And her eyes get misty. I said, do you do this more often? Oh, she said, every once in a while. Next month I go to Korea, bring a couple more home. No person is truly human or totally alive until he has found a cause that he would joyfully die for. It may be a child. Let me give you something. You cannot explain America, my friends, and ignore the place that Jesus Christ played. No, we are a pluralistic society, but no religion played the part of Christianity. And some of us who know Jesus know he's alive. He lives in our hearts. And he gives us a compulsion to love, to serve, to give everything if we have to, even our life at the cross, gladly. Do not feel sorry for those who died. Feel sorry for those who are alive and have nothing. They die. You wouldn't lay down your life for your labeled clothes, would you? So you drive that kind of a car, or you wear that kind of a suit, or you carry that kind of a bag. Is that all life is? You wouldn't die for those labels, would you? I want to give you something you die for, and that's Jesus Christ, the Savior, the Son of God. He lives in my heart. He really does, like a fire. I wrote a prayer this morning. Maybe I can remember it. Oh God, that I might reach into my heart, draw out a spark, take it, blow it until it becomes a flame, roll it until it becomes a glowing globe, and then fling it through space until it plunges into your heart and ignites a holy fire in you. Oh, I give you Jesus Christ. Take him. And with him, America will be great, and the whole world will be better because of it. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may God give to you his peace in your going out and in your coming in your lying down and in your rising up, in your labor and in your leisure, in your laughter and in your tears, until you come to stand before Jesus in that day in which there is no sunset and no dawning. Amen. Earlier this morning, we saw how the hour of power is bringing hope and enthusiasm each week to the lives of persons in homes, in hospitals, in colleges, and in prisons, to the rich and to the poor. You and I, through the hour of power, are changing lives. How can we continue this good work? You know, we pay for every minute of airtime to come into your town, into your home. Where will the support come from? Obviously, from people who want this ministry to keep on keeping on. All gifts, of course, are tax deductible. It is costing us $33 million to air 52 Sunday programs at the Hour of Power over 170 television stations. Now, where does the support come from? 25% of our income will come from Eagles Club members. Those are persons who make a pledge or gift to this ministry of $500 or more. 38% of our support for the Hour of Power comes from friends in the response to letters I send to them each month. 27% will come from persons who respond with a gift after watching an Hour of Power television program. Now, this leaves a 10% gap in income for this ministry. This gap represents $3.3 million. By the end of our fiscal year, I must close this gap. The gap between the gifts we are receiving and the support we must have to complete this fiscal year with the Hour of Power on the air in your city and every city. Across America, don't let the light of hope that the Hour of Power brings go out. I'm asking you, all of my friends, to help me close the gap. I am believing that you will do your part. I will need to receive from all of my friends and from people whom I've never heard from before gifts to keep this program in your home every Sunday. Is it possible for you to give a tithe of 10% of your June income to this ministry? Send what you can, but do respond today. Please, don't let me stop helping you and your friends, neighbors, and loved ones in your city or town who each week draw so much hope and inspiration from this program. Now, let's you and I become creative partners. You, by helping me keep this Hour of Power on the air in your town and city. You do that by writing to me today at Robert Schuller, Garden Grove, California. That's Robert Schuller, Garden Grove, California. Really, you and I can make a difference in your town, in your city, and in our country. But I must have help. I must hear from you. That's only 3 weeks away. This Hour of Power means too much to you and too much to so many others to let it go silent now. You will not let it die. Keep this beacon of hope, this bright light burning for all to see. Thank you.